All right. Well, I think we should get going.
Okay.
So thank you, everyone, for joining us tonight. And a big shout out to the Trail and District Chamber of Commerce for helping us host this event, Tariff Realities for Your Business. I'm Eric Colassis. I'm the Executive Director of Community Futures South Kootenay. And what is Community Futures, you may ask? Well, Community Futures is Canada's largest non-for-profit community economic development network. We've got 267 offices across the country, 34 offices in BC, and collectively, our national network manages $2 billion worth of community assets for the federal government, mostly through business capital that we lend to small and medium-sized businesses. We're also very active in community economic development projects, and we collaborate with community partners to find local solutions to local problems. And our CF South Kootenay office is based in Trail, serving the South Kootenay area. That's it for my little shameless promotion there. Tonight, we're going to try to provide some info and clarity on what's happening with tariffs, what to expect, and how to prepare. Are we heading into another period of inflation? Are we heading into a recession? We're also going to try to identify some immediate, positive, and forward-oriented actionable opportunities for businesses. And of course, we're going to answer your questions. Tonight's agenda will be as follows. First, we're going to go around the Zoom room and introduce each speaker. And each speaker will provide some brief opening remarks about what they're going to discuss tonight. And then we'll go back to the first speaker, which will be Michael, and we'll get each speaker to present and talk, and that'll be your opportunity to answer your questions. Please use the chat feature to enter your questions. So I'm going to make the introductions. First, we've got Michael Hoher, who's the Kootenay Boundaries Export Navigator with Export Navigator, or he's the Export Advisor with Export Navigator. The Export Navigator program provides free one-to-one guidance to help businesses progress along the export pathway. The program is funded by the province of British Columbia, the government of British Columbia, in partnership with Pacifican. Michael has been the regional export advisor for the Kootenay Boundary region since 2017, and he brings specialized training and tools to help businesses navigate the range of export programs and services available to them. He's advised and worked with about 250 companies of all sizes and sectors in an effort to grow businesses and sell their products and services outside of BC. Michael, hello, and what are you going to discuss today?
Hi, folks. It's a pleasure to be with you on this great spring day. What I'm going to discuss today is a mixture of a few things. It's going to be talking a little bit about the present moment tariff environment, just so we're all on the same page as to where we are at with that. And then I'm particularly going to focus on how to minimize tariff risks at this early stage, what companies can do. And then I'll just outline a few opportunities to tap into, because my motto is never waste a good crisis. There's always opportunity in it.
I love that one. All right. Thank you, Michael. Next will be Mayor Colleen Jones from the City of Trail. And Mayor Jones has spent 4 years serving the citizens of Trail as city councillor before becoming mayor. No stranger to the political sphere, Mayor Jones spent 32 years in a management role for the provincial government, negotiating and bargaining for government employees and management at all levels. She's called Trail home for most of her life. Dedicated to making a lasting difference, Mayor Jones is not afraid to hit the streets and engage with the people in her community. In fact, personal connections are what inspire her the most. When the people of Trail talk, she listens, like she is going to tonight. So welcome, Mayor Jones. What are you going to discuss tonight?
Thank you, Eric. It's so nice to be here. I
What I want to talk about tonight is the opportunity that I have had. I got invited to the Border Mayors Alliance, and that alliance is all the towns along the border in Canada through all the provinces. At this point, we have over 82 other mayors that sit on this alliance. And what we're talking about is how it's affecting our communities. And what the tariffs are going to do. So we all know that in March, the tariff decision was a threat to the stability of our smaller rural communities and communities across the border. So I was invited to join this alliance, and it's been really good. So when I saw your advertisement for this roundtable tonight, I was actually very excited about it because this is what the Alliance wants to do. We want to start having roundtable discussions in our communities so that we're talking to the people in our communities about how the tariffs are affecting them and even looking forward, what is it going to look like? So I hope to be sharing a lot of that information tonight with everyone.
Terrific. Thank you. Next will be Danny Ferraro from Ferraro Foods. Danny is a long-standing member of Trail's business community. His company, Ferraro Foods, proudly serves the communities of Trail and Roslyn with 2 grocery stores, employing over 150 people, dedicated staff members, and their focus is on healthy families and thriving in healthy communities. The Ferraro Food locations have full-service meat and seafood shops, a cheese shop, a delicatessen, an in-store bakery, as well as produce, grocery, and dairy departments. The Trail location also features an in-store Starbucks kiosk. In 2020, Danny was named Business Person of the Year by Kootenay Business Magazine, and his company won the Community Impact Award at the 2019 Business Excellence Awards. Great to have you here, Danny.
What do you? Well, thanks for inviting me. So, what I'll talk, briefly on is how the tariffs are going to affect everyone, and hopefully we can avoid some more tariffs coming. But I think I can explain how we've been doing it for the past 50 years through Mexico, the US, and Canada, and then see what happens.
Fantastic, thank you. And last but not least, we've got Mandi Lunan. And Mandi is an independent food and beverage business advisor. She is the founder of one of the first specialty distribution bakeries in Eastern Ontario, which she ran for 13 years. She's also the founder of the new Kootenay Peer Group Chair for BC Food and Beverage. Having relocated to the Kootenays in the fall of 2020, Mandi has quickly become an advisor and trusted ally to the food community and has worked with groups such as the Trail and District Chamber of Commerce, Basin Food, Armstrong's The Big Cheese, Community Futures, BC Entrepreneurs with Disabilities Program, and the 2SLGLBTQIA+ program, and the Territorial Agri-Food Association. Welcome, Mandi. And what are you going to be talking about tonight?
Thank you very much for having me. I'm going to be talking about what BC Food and Beverage is doing to help with the tariff situation at the provincial and at the federal level. I'm going to be sharing some really great resources that I've found as well. And I'm going to be talking about just practical strategies and approaches to these type of things.
Okay, beautiful. Looking forward to it. Thank you. All right, well, let's kick it off with Michael's presentation. Michael from Export Navigator. You've got a few slides to share with us, Michael?
Yes, I will share a few slides. It's going to be a quick presentation. I don't have much time for this quite evolved and involved topic, but I leave it for the Q&A session to address some of the finer details that you may still be wondering about. As we said, present moment tariff environment is the first thing. Minimizing tariff risks and opportunities are the few things that we're going to talk about. But I do want to kick off with two comments, and it's quite brazen to, I believe, to summarize something as substantial as what is often referred to as a trade war in two comments. But I think it helps us frame our conversation a little bit. And the first one is enterprises should recognize tariff volatility as a multi-year dynamic event. That just emphasizes and underlines that there is no quick end in sight. In whatever shape or form it may be around, it may linger around. And I think that in itself should provide a piece of certainty for many people that feel that uncertainty is the topic of the day. So use that as a framework going forward. The second one I find really interesting, in that is, while many companies are simply seeking to survive the tariffs, the best of breed companies will be investing, and that may be in people, maybe in technology, maybe in supplier diversification or geographic diversification. And right there, we see a tremendous opportunity here in terms of how we can go forward in joining the best of breed companies, each and every one of us in our operations. In regards to the present moment tariff environment, man, it's been a roller coaster ride for the last 6-7 weeks. Hard to compare to anything what we have had in years and decades prior. Even the first Trump administration only had tariffs on steel and aluminum. Right now, we see it across the bench. So I just want to, in red, highlighted in red, is basically what we're currently dealing with. So this table shows the first column, who is the initiator. The second column, the action, is what's happening, and the status describes where it's at. Is it paused? Is it active? Where is it at? And the implementation date. And the last column is just the link to the source paper, meaning an executive order in most cases, or in the case of Canada, for the 25% retaliatory tariffs on certain products of the US. There's 3 lists floating around with different implementation dates. But let's just go row by row. So currently, the much hyped end of January, early February initiation of implementation of 25% tariffs on all products of Canada and a 10% tariff on energy and potash from Canada is at this point partially paused. The latest pause and extension of the first basically had wording around non-conforming CUSMA products of Canada being subject to 25% tariffs. So there's definitely a few products right now at this point in time that experience the 25% tariff as they go into the US. The second column, very important, and that's mostly geared towards, let's say, e-commerce company. There's something called Section 321 or de minimis, and that basically states that products up to a value of $800 can go, or were able to go without any kind of raising of flags into the US and to final consumers. Very important for e-commerce companies, as you can imagine. In the initial executive order, that was thrown out the window, completely eliminated. But it was interesting, only 2 days after the tariffs against China in early February were implemented, it was removed and temporarily allowed again. And that had to do with the fact that there were tens of thousands of packages piling up at border posts and arrival storage facilities that nobody knew what to do with. There still is no formal process in place how to deal with that onslaught of packages day after day after day. So it is paused until further notice, and that means until such time that the Customs and Border Protection Agency, that's the CBSA equivalent in the US, finds a way to deal with those items. That's at least our understanding at this time. On those two first line items, I want to point out here in the lower left corner, there's a fabulous resource called Tariff Finder. It's a US government BDC, EDC, Trade Commissioner Service combined effort where you can look up products and HS codes and find out exporting to the US or importing into Canada what kind of tariffs you can expect. So that's a first gut check that only takes a few minutes to conduct. So the retaliatory tariffs of Canada made against products of the US is active at this point in time in form of two lists, Part 1, Part 2. And those are roughly $60 billion equivalent of products crossing into Canada that experience right now a 25% tariff. In Part 3, subject to what further action the US will take against Canada, starting in early April, it may or may not be implemented at that time. Number 4 and 5, 25% tariffs on steel and aluminum are active as of March 12th. That is in place. This is just a real quick link to the three lists. The lists of March 4th, roughly $30 billion. The list of March 13th, roughly $29.8 billion. And what they call a notice to intend to impose countermeasures, that's the big list, the $100 billion.
Hey, Brian, I have to get my belt on.
Sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Sir. Oh, my beat. Okay, now she can do whatever she wants.
I'm not sure if that relates to the webinar. Maybe you want to mute yourself here.
Yeah, it sounds like.
There we go.
In from a very high level description, this is just a summary of the first $30 billion list as to what kind of products are currently experiencing a 25% tariff from a high level perspective. And this is the second one that was joined March 12th. So you already can get a sense whether products that you deal with, trade with, purchase, acquire, sell are impacted at this point in time or not. But here we go. Tariffs are not the only situation. Retaliatory trade action, there's also non-tariff measures. And I want to just highlight a few of them. And this is not to promote, but just for wholeness sake, to highlight as to what else is going on. For example, halting purchases of US products is a form of consumer activism. Put your money where your mouth is as an individual here in Canada. And we have seen this in an EBA movement, everything but American, that's what it's called. For example, US travels are down significantly. Both WestJet and Air Canada have just announced that their January, February US destination sales are down by about 23%. The Flight Center says their US destinations are down by 40%. So we already see tourism greatly impacted. And that may, of course, also have to do with a number of other things, including a weak Canadian dollar in the wake of the tariff tit for tat here. So there may be other reasons also, of course. Halt sales of US products. We all are familiar with liquor stores pulling American alcoholic beverages. It's interesting. The CEO of Johnny Walker, the liquor company in the US, had mentioned that, you know what, this is probably the worst case for them. And although Canada is only 1% of their global sales, they did say that the fact that their product is not available, period, is much worse than if there was a tariff on it. Because at that time, people still have the choice to purchase it, albeit at a higher price, but it's still available for purchase. And he says in many of the retail environments, shelf space is highly, highly competitive. And there's always a risk of not making it back onto the shelves and back into the consumers' minds and hearts. Government procurement restrictions, we have seen that. Ontario is a good example, and they're scrapping of $100 million a year Starlink contract to bring high-speed internet to rural Ontario areas. We have seen investments in internal trade and diversification changed with rules where Canada has a little bit more scrutiny to allow or not allow foreign entities to acquire or invest significantly into Canadian assets, company corporate assets, that is. We've seen export restrictions. Ontario's short-lived 25% tariff on U.S. destined hydro exports was a good example there. There has been a significant push by some provinces to ask for Alberta to have exit tariffs on their oil and gas products, which Alberta is very keen not to see implemented. But that's just an example. In transport restrictions, both New Brunswick and BC have considered road tolls on U.S. Licensed vehicles on their way, trucks mostly on their way from the contiguous U.S., the 48 to Alaska, for example. And that's just a few examples as to what that could look like as a non-tariff measure. But that's not the end of it. There's still a number of things that are currently brewing. And it's quite interesting. If you read some of those executive orders, what you see is an insane amount of expectation to report incredibly vast streams and reams of data and analysis thereof in a number of these key sectors like automobiles, pharmaceuticals, energy, digital services, copper, critical minerals, lumber and wood. And April 1st is one of those report due dates back to President Trump for consideration of further action. So any of these sectors listed here may experience tariffs or additional tariffs. And the nature of the tariffs up to this point is such that they would be stacking, meaning on top of each other and not replacing each other. One of the much anticipated tariff potentials is the last row, reciprocal tariffs on all countries. And that is described as fair and reciprocal plan on trade, an executive a piece that was written, a fact sheet that was written in mid-March. Initially, it was intended to basically mirror every country's tariff on every single product to the US. So meaning I will treat you the way you treat us. So if there was let's say 10% tariff on belly porks into Argentina, and Argentinians could send it for free without tariffs into the US, the thinking there was that belly porks would have a 10% tariff starting April 2nd for Argentinian export products. So that was the thinking behind it. The most recent, including today's rhetoric around that, is a tempering of that expectation, possibly in such form that every country may receive a number, meaning whoever treats the US really good in the sense of tariff-free access to its market may receive none or a lower tariff going forward. And those that treat the US in the eyes of Donald Trump less favorable would receive a more stiffer number in terms of tariff. Excuse me. Just quickly, observation on how the types of businesses that I see is very interesting. Right now, there's 4 categories predominantly. One kind is where the US is just way too important a market to just pull the plug on. And so those ones we work with on location strategy where they can open up a subsidiary in the US. An example, just a recent example, is Noble NOBL Wheels from Cumberland, BC. They do bike wheels. For them, the U.S. market was incredibly important. In February, they already opened a manufacturing and retail store in Bellingham, Washington, just as an example. The second one is abandon U.S. activities and focus on domestic markets. Quite a few conversations I have relate to that in my work with my clients. And that quite sometimes is motivated by two things. One is perhaps hurt and taking pride in being Canadian and supporting domestic economy. And the other thing is also there's a real sense of freak out right now amongst people traveling to the US frequently on business as to what kind of treatment they will receive when crossing the border. And I have already received quite a number of reports from various industries and various clients and sectors where the behavior at the border station was not even close to professional, and was very much in the hands and the personal mood kind of thing of the border person at that time. The third one is diversifying into international markets. Canada has a ton of free trade agreements, nearly 50 countries of the world that we have free trade agreements with. So there's lots of international opportunity. And the fourth one is companies that can't make sense of what's going on right now, and they go a little bit into hiding and slowing down right now. But nevertheless, all reactions are legit. And we work with all four types of companies and beyond in what it is that they need to or want to accomplish next. How are we on time, Eric?
You only have a couple more minutes, please.
Okay, so this is going to be through the water hose, and that is, what are some recommended actions to minimize risks? One, logistics-wise, there's a number of things that can be done. One is understanding valuation rules, understanding tariff calculations, how are the tariffs calculated, but also figure out allowable deductions, and that's subject to categories of products where certain exclusions can be made for service portions. Think of a timber frame house kind of thing, where a design portion may have been part of a lump sum, but if you break it out from the beginning to end, then you wouldn't pay tariffs on that. Super important are the trifecta in terms of tariff applicability, and that is HS classifications. That's that 10-digit code that describes everything. Everything you see, everything you use has an HS code for trade tracking purposes. Country of origin has become more important than ever to really nail down and determine whether it is a product of Canada or made in Canada. And then, of course, the Incoterms 2020, those are the shipping terms. They regulate who is the importer of record, who is going to cough up the 25% tariff or whatever percentage of tariff there is. Super important, those three things to be very, very clear about. And I can help you finding out which one it is by varying levels of certainty. And then, of course, trade incentive programs are where when you import certain products into Canada, you pay a tariff on those, but then you produce something else with those ingredients or products and then sell it back or send it back to the US, then you may qualify for a duty drawback or deferral where you get that tariff that you paid to some point back. And remissions is new. That is regarding Canadian retaliatory tariffs that you as a Canadian company can apply to CBSA for lack of domestic supply or exceptional circumstances and find an exception to paying retaliatory tariffs altogether. From a finance perspective, there's huge opportunity right now for any kind of company to improve their accounting and financial management practices. Especially micro businesses are traditionally very weak in understanding their financial affairs, their profitability, indirect, direct cost, cost of goods sold, you name it. Super important to understand that this time, quite often people say, well, I'm going to absorb the 25% tariff. And then my question is, well, that's generous. That's really kind of you, but do you have the profitability to be able to do so? And people say, oh, yeah, totally. 60, 70% gross profit, no problem. And that alarms me because ranges never work. Gross profit doesn't work either. Sensitivity and scenario analysis for price and volume changes. You may lose contracts. Quite a number of my clients have lost contracts in the hundreds and hundreds of thousands of dollars, which changes the production scenario, the volume, and therefore also potentially the price. And there's just two tools that I figured I want to share with you as some that you can use for scenario analysis. And scenario actually is also something that's tremendous for infrastructure and municipalities and whatnot. So, and indirect cost strategies here in that little blurb here, you see what to do there. Cut unnecessary costs, source Canadian, renegotiate price terms with suppliers, review the processes to improve efficiency, and explore technology, AI, automation, those kind of things to bring down your cost per unit. And for right now, I'm going to leave it at that with a document review and contract review. Super important. Consistency throughout this ask more than ever. I see large degrees of irregularities amongst businesses that don't have their sales terms in order, reviewed for accuracy and also legal language and validity and whatnot. And here's just a few of them that we talked about. Shipping terms, for example, payment terms, price adjustment clauses to give you a way out in case something happens, like a unforeseen price increase, like a tariff. And that goes probably hand in hand with force majeure clauses. And treat it as a negotiation opportunity at this point in time. And last but not least, insurances. Check if your supply chain disruption or your contingent business interruption are covered by the insurances that you may have in place. I'm going to leave it at that. We're going to talk about opportunities, I'm sure, galore afterwards, and then I may come back to my slides here.
Terrific, Michael. Thank you. Obviously, a very complex landscape, this import-export business. And Michael, if you could please drop your email address into the chat. If you need to get a hold of Michael directly, he's our regional advisor for the Kootenay boundary for Export Navigator, and obviously very knowledgeable with this matter here. I did have one question. I noticed that tools were on that list. So if I'm wanting to buy a chop saw from the States, I'm already too late. I'm subject to 25% increase in the price, right?
Yeah, I mean, tools can be a lot of things, quite potentially, but the way it goes is quite easy. You can go to one of the two lists and find out first the HS code for that tool, type it in, and then you see whether the 25% retaliatory tariff applies or not. It's really easy to check. One thing to note just really quick, because people have been commenting on that, the CBSA is asked to not be as lenient as it was in the past for people traveling by car from the US and having done personal shopping. So don't be surprised if you come back from the US across the Patterson border or whichever border crossing and be asked to cough up 25% and perhaps GST also.
Lovely. All right. Okay, thank you, Michael. That's terrific. Any other questions? I don't see anything else in the chat. Okay, we'll move on to Mayor Colleen Jones. I know Mayor Jones is on a bit of a deadline here. So over to you. You'll have to unmute, please.
So you would think all the meetings that we've been in, right? Okay, so thank you so much. And I just want to say, for us, for this Border Mayor Alliance, Our goal is to focus on small businesses and small communities along the border that are really being affected. And although, you know, we come from the city of Trail, where Tech Operations is one of the biggest mining companies in the world. Currently, because the tariffs are on steel and aluminum, they're not really being affected, which is a good news story for us for sure. So they're just, you know, going along and keeping an eye on the tariffs and what it's going to look like for them, you know, coming April 1st. But I wanted to say that, yes, we are focused on the small businesses and communities along the border. And what we're doing is advocating for policies that protect the small businesses from these harmful tariffs. And we want to make sure that the trade and the cross-border economic activity still goes, because a lot of the small businesses still need to do business with some of the American smaller towns along the border as well. And we've reached out to some of the mayors in the communities along the US border, and they're desperate for our support. And they want to work with us to make sure that we are not affected. Well, let's say that we are less affected by the tariffs, and they've been coming to us and asking for our support as well. And what we also want to do is make sure that we're securing government funding for business support and infrastructure. And I just read on one of the news releases that I received is that our new premier, Mark Carney, did give some funding to some of the smaller businesses for exactly that, to help them with the tariffs. And I think I said it before, we really want to make sure that we strengthen the cross-border relationship, because we really need each other now. You know, these tariffs, and we know that the tariffs that the states are putting on will hurt the states as well. And we know that they're going to hurt Canada as well. So it's quite interesting to see how desperate the towns are, as well as some of our in the states, as well as some of our smaller businesses. And this alliance that I'm on is also promoting border businesses and tourism through a media campaign. And we know now, we already have seen that our tourism has actually increased a bit because of the American dollar. But the Americans are saying that their tourism is down because the Canadians don't want to go down there. And, you know, a prime example, and I was supposed to go down for a golf trip to Palm Springs, and I canceled because I just, you know, I just couldn't go down and spend my money down there when I knew my communities up here needed it more. So it's a really good campaign, supporting small businesses, listening to them, bringing their issues back to Ottawa, where everything is done. And we know that it's making an effect. We know that it's helping. We can see some relief that's coming from the government. And we're going to keep putting that pressure on. We said from the beginning that, you know, when our Premier David Eby said, you know, we're going to keep it to Team Canada, it's going to be all of us or none of us. We're going to go down as a team and make sure that we support each other going through these tariffs. And that's exactly what we're doing. We want to keep that Team Canada, you know, thought going, and we're just working together, and everybody's coming up with different ideas of how to make this effective. And yeah, it's such a fluid situation right now. We're waiting for April 2nd. We know what the tariffs are right now, and just really worried about April 2nd coming up for these small businesses and communities.
Such a remarkable endeavor, a great alliance. How many mayors are involved with this in Canada?
Well, on our last meeting, there was 83 of us from across Canada. So it's really interesting to see what Saskatchewan is doing and Manitoba is doing. And we know that Alberta's sort of, just floating out there, not really committing to anything at this time. So we're kind of watching what happens there. And Quebec is sort of quiet too, but Newfoundland, all of those smaller provinces are really being affected by it because they count on the state so much for their, products and their tourism and all of that. So yeah, it's been a really interesting journey here so far. I'm just really excited that I'm able to share this information with everybody, because it's just been head down, doing this kind of work and trying to find outcomes. And so it's just great to be here.
Question about the borders. I understand it's just the US border, but has there been any discussions about our interprovincial borders and breaking those down and making commerce easier within Canada?
Yes, I believe they're in talks right now about that. I know that Premier Eby is very interested in it. Even Doug Ford, Premier Doug Ford said that he would be willing to do that too. And it's really, and Manitoba, they want to look at that as well. We have to support each other, and that's what it's about. And whether it's cross-border shopping, interprovincial shopping, products going from BC to Ontario. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that we need to do to keep Canada strong right now.
Absolutely. Glad to hear it. Thank you. Are there any other questions? You can unmute and ask. You don't have to type it in the chat if you don't want to. Okay, well, thank you, Mayor Jones. Greatly appreciate that you can take time out of your busy day to join us.
Thank you.
All right. Okay, we're going to move on to Danny Ferraro. Danny, over to you. I'll ask you to unmute, please.
How's that?
There you go.
Better?
Here.
Yeah, thank you for having us. And I hope we can sort of help by telling people what we've been doing ever since the tariffs have been put in place and even before that. And we're very lucky to a couple things, long relationships with companies that do international business, and which has made us very strong. And we've carried a lot of international products. And on the fresh side, which we are paying today, just so that everyone understands how that works, is we start every year in Mexico, probably November, the end of November, and Mexico is feeding all of us, whether it's the US and Canada. It's a very well put together program that has been around for many years to make sure that we get everything at the right time, at the right price. And it works its way up. It works its way all the way up through California, Oregon, Washington, and all the way into British Columbia. And all of us are working back and forth. Just to let everyone know, once that started, the first thing all of our vendors, we went towards and said, okay, what can we secure in Mexico? What can we secure in South Africa for oranges? Because everything comes in certain times of the year. So what we've been doing is trying to think. But in saying that, right now we are going to be going more into the US because that's where we will be shopping. It's inevitable for this year, but we still are, and still everyone that I talk to is there anything left in Mexico? Now, one good thing that we've done is most all the hothouse guys that are out there have places in Canada, US, and Mexico. So depending on how bad our weather is or how bad their weather is, everyone is working towards. So now what it's done with three of them is we're going to let Canada run 12 months a year to just service Canada. So that's a positive. Then we won't be paying tariffs on those products. But we are going to feel, because it's already been in place since March, I think the 1st, the 15th, another list came out, or the 12th. And we are paying 25% duty on things right now. We have been informed by a lot of companies that produce that produce in the US and make their products in the US that we're probably looking at, and I'm going to say 30% more very soon. But in saying that, I know there's a 25% tariff, but there's always the fees just go up with it. But we are trying to see, is there any other place that we can get those from? And so far, I got to tell you, all of our buyers, all of our companies that we've been working with, we're all working together to try to minimize that risk for everyone, whether it is shopping, pre-buying. We're going to do our best. Our biggest hope is that we can, come April the 2nd, maybe it's not going to be as bad as everyone thinks. That's our goal. And maybe everyone thinks, but we're real. It's really what's happening. And each one of us, each brother has a different job in the field. And, James will be going back to Italy to secure some more, to the shows to see what we can change ourselves over on, which we've done a terrific job, I believe. All in the stores right now outside of International Foods. We've labeled everything to tell everyone what is manufactured, what is Canadian, what is manufactured in Canada, and what is like created a job in Canada for it. And so those are listed, they're all up. All our signs are up in all our departments telling you where it's from. The grade is where we're just getting as many things as we can, right? Tomorrow, I don't know what tomorrow holds, but I can tell you this, we're there fighting every day. And I think we've seen the shift in people's buying habits, and we have tailored towards that. Now, you had a couple questions. I saw something pop up on my screen.
Yeah, we got one right here. Where does Ferraro source most of their meat from?
Well, most of the meat's from Canada. Pork is mostly it's Canadian. There's some ribs from Danish. There's some Danish. All of our beef is either from Canada or it's imported. It's not from the US. All of our chicken's Canadian. It's coming out of Alberta. So most of our meat is all Canadian. So that is a good thing.
Excellent. Okay, we have another one here.
Sure.
Some of the buying trends and changes you see with your customers.
Well, they're buying less American right now, and it's very surprising. People, when they come in and they really are looking at it, they go through the aisles and they'll spend an hour in the store just seeing what's available. So if it's that Frito, and I can't remember all the chips that are there, but so we'll go crackers. Some of the crackers are made in the US. They have switched and said, okay, this is made in Canada. So they're buying that. So we're seeing that more and more. And and honestly, every section in that store has an item, I believe, from Canada or Europe. And that's what we have focused on for the past, I don't know how many years. And it's it's nice to see that where we are today, right?
And your buying is going to be
Even more.
reflective, right?
Exactly. I meet with all the produce buyers. That's my area: produce, deli, flowers, Starbucks, and I meet with them all the time. Where are we getting it? What are we going to do? And I'm trying to secure everything at the best possible price.
You explained the rotation from Mexico to USA seasonality. We understand that.
And all the way into Canada.
Right. Then because Canada also provides and produces
Yes,
foods.
back to them.
But just looking at the USA, what are the top foods that the US produces more than anyone else?
Well, they're producing orange citrus. Citrus is a big one. Your cauliflower, your broccoli.
Right.
And it's funny because last year apples, we had a bit of an issue last year where we lost BC Fruit Association. But there's some others that have picked up some things, but it's really put a push on to a lot of the apples were coming from the US. But there's some small independent people that we're working with to try to change that totally around. And so we can get apples all year round, and we get apples from New Zealand, Australia. Right now, that's one of our Oppenheimer group is one of our best groups that they're from all over the world. And so when we're just saying, where could we go today?
Thank you. We've got a couple of more questions.
Sure.
On to Mandi. How do the changing buying trends impact Ferraro Foods? Does it leave you stuck with US products that couldn't be predicted?
You know what? There could be some, but with all of our buying in Ferraro Foods has been on mostly European products. The day-to-day products that are coming out of the from US suppliers are just shelf stock only. I hope they're still selling, but not near as fast as they were.
There might be a sale on US products.
You know what? There could, you never know, right?
Okay. Yeah, because we had another question here saying, do you
Sure.
that your store will have a lot of outdated US products? Well,
I think people are still going to buy. It depends on what we're seeing on the next set of tariffs. Right now, the tariffs for us are coming from the Canadian government because none of those products have come up. April the 2nd is when we're supposed to know about all the US products, right? So.
Okay, and one last question from
Sure.
She says, thanks for all you do, Danny.
Well,
you feel you are set ahead of other big box grocers because of your buy local mindset? And do you predict your price fluctuations will be less or more or the same as big box?
On our day-to-day items, like on items that are coming out of BC, or from all over the world that we have relationships for, I don't believe they're going to change that much. I think I already know. I've been trying to keep down and buy down like broccoli and cauliflower and oranges and things like that, where the tariffs already been in. I really haven't adjusted anything. Our suppliers have been really good and helping us, they've taken some of that burden for us.
We talked briefly about our own greenhouses in Canada. And
Yeah,
that there's a greenhouse
yeah, in Vancouver.
that has
Yeah.
Production of lettuce, you said?
Yeah, well, there's actually a few. There's one in the Okanagan, but I went and toured. It's called Up Salads out of Abbotsford, and that was through the Oppenheimer Group, and they said, "Danny, can you come?" We were their first customer. I got to tell you, 3 of us went there, and I was actually really moved to see what they've done. And there was one was a dentist and one was a lawyer, and they just said, you know what, we just want to do this, and this facility can give everybody in British Columbia, this one facility, all their lettuce needs every day of the week, just them. And we have some others that are just came on from Alberta, and they're doing all the spring mixes and things. So the bigger packs. So there is some incredible other farms out there. Purdue Farms, 100 acres of greenhouse, 100 acres. You guys, they were supplying all of the U.S. and all of the West, and we've been with them forever. And I got to tell you, we're very fortunate to be where we are with who we are, and these relationships, they just mean so much to us, and we're there supporting them 150%. I told them that right from day one.
Awesome. So there's hope.
Yes, there is.
And
we're working every day to make sure you pay the least amount as you can.
Fantastic. Well, we really, really appreciate everything you do for our communities, Danny.
Well, thank you.
Yeah. All right. Thank you very much. We're going to move on to Mandi now. And please stick around. Mandi, over to you.
I'm good. I'd like to become a Ferraro brother and volunteer for the trip to Italy, please. I like tasting things. I speak a little Italian. I could do it. That sounds like a dream gig. Thank you though so much for that, Danny. I'd actually even heard of Ferraro Foods before I came to the Kootenays in 2020. Some friends of mine, their parents, Winter and Nelson, she's like, "Oh, you're so lucky. You're gonna live beside Ferraro Foods," and I was very, very much lived up to the reputation. So
thank you.
wonderful.
Thank you.
And thank you so much for all the support you give the Chef Club program too every year. So yeah, I don't know about everybody on this call, but I'm fixing to start putting $1 in a jar every time somebody says tariff to me. This is really come out of nowhere. And one of the very first webinars I went on with Restaurants Canada to learn about tariffs, the fella who was hosting said, let's all just kind of get ourselves in the mindset that there's going to be a lot of fire drills the next 4 years. And I thought that was such a great way of putting it, that, this is a chaotic trading partner we have down south, and lots of things could change, but we're strong, we're resilient, we're a great food community. So I'm now involved with British Columbia Food and Beverage, who does advocacy work for packaged foods, beverages, as well as agriculture. And a lot of the big concerns in the food and beverage industry right now is, well, first off, if you're doing anything with cans, you've had some sleepless nights. There's lots of folks right now worrying a lot about the aluminum tariffs. Anybody who's doing beer, sodas, that kind of thing, everybody's kind of waiting with bated breath on that one. As well as what other folks were touching on too was stuff I was going to touch on, your supplier contracts. I owned my own small distribution bakery for 13 years and sold to some of the big kids, as I called it, like Whole Foods and the Farm Boy grocery store chain and Aramark Services. And I know how crazy and chaotic it can get, but if you haven't stopped to look at your supplier contracts with your clients and even the people who you are buying your things from, you need to do that when you get off the call tonight. Just take 30 minutes, make a big cup of tea, and go through your supplier contracts, see what you've committed to, see what your exit strategies are, see what the plans are there, and always keep communicating. We're all in this together. keep communicating with the folks who you have worked with, because those relationships are building up. I find too, a lot of people right now are being a lot more flexible than normal because everybody just wants to work together so badly. If it is not going to be a reality for you to continue with your current supplier out of the USA or sell into the USA, have a look locally. There's lots of great toolkits and resources that are popping up just everywhere. I'm going to share a tariff toolkit link in just a moment. But start looking inward, start looking at folks in Canada. If you're a small business owner, food or not, this is where your community comes in so important. So let's pretend that you're right now too, there's actually, I can't even remember the right, sorry, it's been a long week, but there's actually a product right now that is in a certain type of packaging that is also sadly used to make fentanyl. So this packaging is now going to be subject to a tariff because the Trump government is really against fentanyl. So this certain kind of packaging is going to be called out. So you need to really be on top of your resources, be on top of what's going on, and have these conversations with your supplier. I'm just going to pull up the tariff. There it is, the tariff toolkit. So cute. This link has all kinds of fantastic webinars, resources, folks you can call, folks you can ask questions to, as well as there is even a hotline and an email for questions regarding tariffs right now. You can call somebody and ask them straight up if you do need that information, which I always love. There we go, right there as well. Evaluating the risks in your industry as well too. So if you haven't really stopped to take a look around and see, if you are doing something in a can, that's a risk. Stop and have a chat with your friends, have a chat with your business advisors, and evaluate those risks for yourself as well. If you are going to be pulling out of the US, if you're selling to them right now, it's really important that you research new revenue streams and that you find new folks to sell to. See if there's somebody within Canada who you can sell to. Our new Prime Minister has promised, what are they calling it? That's it. Free Trade by Canada Day, and it's the removal of the provincial trade barriers, which is something that those of us who have been in the food distribution industry since 2002 have been begging for. So it's very, very exciting day. I'm curious to see the logistics around that and how that will work out and how that will happen, as each province is so different. But if they were to drop those provincial trade restrictions, it would be an absolute game changer for everyone in business in Canada and really make us more self-sufficient. Because the thing that President Trump is trying to put forward is his America first. So he's trying to get to our economy to kind of take us down. For, again, trying to keep it light and fluffy and as positive as I can over here. So we in turn are going to do Canada first and try to trade within all of our provinces. And I personally would absolutely love to see that happen. The CEO of BC Food and Beverage is actually one of the chairs on a action committee. It's the Premier's task run by our Premier here, our Premier's task force for agriculture and food. So the CEO of BC Food and Beverage, James Donaldson, is on that task force. I am collecting thoughts and concerns from folks in the Kootenays and relaying those back to him as part of my job as the Kootenay Peer Group Chair. So if you do have anything that you would like to share or you would like to relay back to BC Food and Beverage, something that's unique to your industry, being an advisor, I love it so much. I've learned so much about different types of food and beverage and agricultural industries and all of their unique challenges. So if there is something that you're encountering and you would like to bring it to provincial attention, please shoot me a note and I'm happy to send that along for you. And I think that was everything I really had to share about it, but I am going to share a few more links in the chat because I find that sometimes on the panels and everything afterwards, I start to do some reflection. So I will share some links in the chat, some resources for everybody to have a look at. And if there's any questions, just let me know.
Just taking a look here. What's going to happen with our restaurants and the pricing there? I imagine it's going to go up. I'm just looking at where Cisco Foods is located. They're an American company out of Texas, I know.
And yeah, and the Cisco guy for BC is actually on this task force with our premier, which I noticed today when I was going through who was on the task force, which I thought was really interesting.
Interesting.
So, yeah.
For those of you who don't know, Cisco Foods, along with Gordon Foods, one of their competitors, they supply most of the restaurants with their food. And because they're American and a lot of those products are American, we're going to see some price increases at the restaurants probably, right?
We could, but we could also argue too, like if Cisco's taking the time to put somebody on a provincial task force to have these discussions, it's in Cisco's best interest to keep their clients and to keep the people who they are currently selling to. And if the people who are they're currently selling to are saying, hey, we want to buy stuff that's more Canadian, Cisco has that kind of buying power that they could purchase those items. And it might not be rock bottom like the prices some of the restaurants are getting now, but because of their buying power, when you buy a whole lot, you can make the price less for the consumer, right? So if they're doing a whole big buy, that might be helpful in the future. And again, I'm purely just speculating here, but I think that that's why they might be part of this task force right now, is so that they can meet that need, because I'm sure that their small business owners who they work with are all asking for that.
Good to see.
Yeah, fingers crossed.
Questions. Mandi, do you see a certain type of food producer being impacted more than others?
Anybody doing stuff with beer, beer cans, mocktails, juices, beverages, glass and aluminum and steel. Glass was a tricky one. During COVID, there was a glass shortage, so everybody switched to aluminum, and and now the aluminum's going to be impacted by the tariffs. So I see those folks being very heavily impacted. Those folks who are selling into the States, so Whole Foods is a big buyer of small scale artisanal products. So if you are selling into the States, those folks are going to be impacted quite a bit as well. And sorry, there was one other one that was just on the tip of my tongue, and there's just so much information. But yes, absolutely. Like anybody doing the stuff in cans is probably going to be the most impacted.
Okay, thanks for sharing all those links.
No problem. I'm just putting down my email now as well. You can send me an email anytime or just reach out to BC Food and Beverage directly.
And I will put the Community Futures email address in the chat as well. There was another question here. Do you have any specific advice for us as consumers to support those food businesses besides buy local, of course?
Well, I'm gonna get a little personal here, and I was saying this before everybody else got on the call. I just keep apologizing to the people who I'm working with, because these folks have gone through COVID and they made it. And now they're about to go through this. So my advice is, when you're at the farmer's market, and if you do notice that the price is higher, don't take it out on the small producer in front of you. Don't take it out on the small grocer in your community who is keeping your community fed and well supplied. It's not fun to pay more for food and pay more for groceries, but everybody's kind of out there right now doing the absolute best that they can. I think that is, and also too, just be curious and ask more questions. Look at the farms who are in your community, see if they have subscription programs in place. There's a great couple farms over in Selmo, so Forest Farm, goat and sheep cheese. They have a little CSA going. Clutch Farms has a little CSA going right now here in the Trail and District. We love Earthy Organics as well. Have a look around your own community. And even have a look. I know that when I was still in the tiny little part of Southern Ontario, to be able to call something local, the rule was 50 to 100 kilometers. But I have since been corrected that out here, it's anything in the Columbia Basin, and sometimes also anything in the interior can be counted as local here in the Kootenay. So ask questions, get to know your farmers, be curious, check out your farmers markets. We have incredible farmers markets in British Columbia with lots of wonderful people doing beautiful stuff.
And they're probably going to be bigger and better than ever with everything that's going on, right?
Absolutely. Absolutely. And it's fun, like, just to, see what grows here. When I very first got to the Kootenays in 2020, I'd grown up between Toronto and Ottawa. Don't judge. Oh, I'm allowed to make fun of Toronto, though. I was born there. But when I very first got to the Kootenays, I was really shocked at things like apples and garlic. And it felt like I'd never had real berries or a real apple or even that red beautiful Russian garlic. I'd never seen anything like it until I got out here. We live in a very special place where we can be very well fed. We just need to make sure we keep supporting our farmers and our small food producers.
Another question, is there a central place to find out how and who to support that needs it the most?
Not to my knowledge, but again, like just discussing things in your community. The farmers market is such a great place. So much networking, knowledge, learning happens at the farmers market. Attending your farmers market, chatting with folks who are literally there on the ground. They will tell you their story and they will let you know what's been going on. And follow small business owners that you love on social media and tell them that you love them. It takes 2 seconds.
Great. I did have one question emailed to us from Michelle Fairbanks in Roslyn at the Gold Rush bookstore. She's very interested in how to navigate this storm. Tariffs applied on books as of April 3rd. Not sure how this will look and affect us, but so far rumblings, CEBA and the Retail Association of Canada are not looking good for our small business. And I guess it's more of a general question on food. Michael, do you know about anything related to books that you could share, please?
So I'm not sure if I understood the question.
So there's tariffs are going to be applied on books as of April 3rd. Not sure how this will look and affect us, but so far it's not looking too good for our small business.
Oh,
Like-
so books, prints. Okay. Well, I suggest to get in touch with me, and literally takes 10 minutes for me to share in a one-on-one conversation the various tools online to find out what is impacted by tariffs and what isn't. I'm happy to do it here, but it's just, it would be a little disjointed with everybody just waiting for different screens to come up.
Sure. Okay. We've recorded this this roundtable, so we'll be sure to share it. Mandi, thank you very much. That was really enlightening. Jessica has one more. When speaking with entrepreneurs in the Kootenays, the thing I keep hearing is to support their advertising, i.e. sharing posts, writing reviews, and sharing local shopping experiences. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, people tend to only reach out to business owners when something's gone wrong. Take a second to reach out when something's gone right.
Great advice. Awesome. All right. Are there any other questions?
Eric, if you permit me, I just want to share 2 things that are coming up in a hurry that people can sign up for to tap into opportunities. Would that be okay?
Absolutely.
All right, I'll do that real quick. So I'm sharing my screen here just quickly again. And what you see here is, of course, Export Navigator is around for you, but that goes without saying. You have my contact in the thing. But what I want to point out, the Trade Accelerator program is a formidable program. Happens about 4 or 5 times a year. There's only one interior cohort in Kelowna, hybrid version. It's a 6-week program where the participant develops their own export plan for a geographic market, target market of their choosing. They get introduced to the whole plethora of support services in the province as well as federally on the first day. And on the second day, they literally go hammering it out, finding out, okay, what are some of the sources for data, for decision-making points, for just anything and everything that informs the building of an export plan. And within 6 weeks, you're done with that. And you have a document that you can implement on. Along the way, you also get a mentor who helps you with that process. And The application deadline for that is March 26, and it starts April 2nd. April 2nd, 3rd is in Kelowna. The rest is online. And there's a few spots available. And from my own referrals into that, I have presently, I think, 5 companies, anywhere ranging from sub $500,000 in annual revenues to $15 million in annual revenues, trying to get into new export markets. And the second one is a base and business advisor program that is starting. It's a 10-week workshop and working group session starting April 17th to June 19th. And so the application closes April 7th. This presentation, as well as a resource document that I have developed for my speaking series that I've had over the last few weeks, is going to be available through Eric. If you can, send that out to the call participants.
Yes. You've got that noted. Okay, thank you, Michael. Very good. All right. Are we done? Anyone else have any more questions? It's time to go have dinner.
I have one question, Eric. Will these continue on, these roundtables continue on if there's more tariffs installed? Like, would this conversation keep going if we need to?
Potentially. If there's value to our stakeholders and our business community, absolutely. I think these are good. Thanks for the question. Michael.
Yeah, so on that note, April 9th, we're going to have a follow-up discussion through Community Futures. We want to make this available in the southeastern part of BC, which is my area within Export Navigator. And there's 5 CF offices, including South Kootenay, that fall into that area. And we do want to make that available to everyone. Don't know what format that is going to be like. Depends very much on the flavor of the day or the discussion point of the day. But there's going to be a lot of Q&A and discussion and resource sharing.
Excellent. Thank you. Okay. Well, Michael, Danny, Mandi, and Colleen, she left already. Thank you very much for your time and your presentations. Very informative. And thank you, everyone, for attending tonight. Hopefully you got some value out of this, and stay tuned if we do another one of these. We've put in our email address in the chat, info@communityfutures.com. If you have any additional questions or need some follow-up, we'll be glad to get back to you.
No worries.
How are things in the world of grocery land?
They're pretty good. They're not
Good.
bad. I mean, it is, we're going to see here. Hold on. Where are you? Okay,
Oh,
there. That's
back?
better. I'm back. Sorry, I had to get rid of. But yeah, you know what? It's just another crisis in a way, right? That
Yes.
we're going through, whether it was COVID or,
Mhm.
hopefully things get better by April 2nd. But
Yeah.
I think most of the tariffs are already in.
Oh, are they?
Yeah.
See, I don't sell physical things, so I'm more like watching how are people going to navigate this, and how do they, the pivot again. Just one more pivot that people are having to make, which is
I know it's going to be hard soon, but
yeah. Do you guys order? I mean, I see the signs in your store. You guys have a lot of Canadian products.
yeah, and
anyway.
we have a lot of European, a lot of Canadian,
Yeah.
but it's still
Still
it's
a lot.
it's still lots. Like all your majors are they're expecting 30% increases. They've already warned us.
Wow.
That's not, because when you figure the 25%,
Yeah,
it becomes 30 by the time we'll get it, right?
for sure. Yeah. Hi, Eric.
Hi.
How's it going?
There he is.
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
How come we didn't get signs that said community futures on the back?
Well, I figured you'd have Ferraro Foods all over the place.
No, no.
So April 2nd now seems like a flexible date. Now the stock markets are reacting, everyone's happy again, and what's going on?
I don't know. Most of the Canadian tariffs are already in place. So I don't know what's going to happen with what he's doing April the 2nd. I don't know. Everyone's been warning us, so we're going to have to see how it goes. I know, what is it, 30 billion or $100 billion worth of products are already getting taxed. I'm paying tax, not directly, but I'm paying through my importer right now.
Does that mean the Canadian side, are we also doing the same? Like, are we already tariffing?
Yeah.
If that's a word, tariffing people?
Well, we're seeing, so when they tariff, they're tariffing their people. When we tariff, we're tariffing our people. That's where everyone's mistaken.
Oh, I didn't know that. See, this is
Yeah.
why these are so valuable.
Yeah. So it's they've already, they started, produce got hit hard just recently. I think any fresh got it first. All the next step is all your cans, chips, cookies. There are some companies that are putting chips and cookies here, but very few, right? The rest is all, we carry European, which is good, but there's a lot of tariff items that are going to come into play, and they feel they're going to be up about 30%.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
Eric. Hi, Danny. Hi, Anna.
So, Michael, where are you from?
Nelson.
Nelson. Okay.
We know each other quite a bit from shopping.
Yes. Yes.
Rose was
Well, I
my wife.
recognize you, but I wasn't sure where you were from in the area.
Yeah, Nelson.
Well, and here we go again, right?
Yeah.
First was COVID.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the last time we did one of these roundtables.
There we go. Hi.
Love the produce behind
Yeah,
you.
see?
Thank you. Zoom can be so boring. I always try to keep it light and fluffy, and especially with the tariff stuff, just try to keep it a little bit brighter, if
Yeah.
possible.
It would be. I don't know. I think we're going to see some light at the end of the tunnel
Oh yeah.
because he's pulled back a bit.
Yeah.
That was today, right?
Yeah.
I try not to follow it, but
Yeah.
I just see
Yeah.
what we see.
Well, the provincial barriers being promised to be dropped by July 1st was a huge win for the food community. That there's a lot of excitement. I'm very curious to see exactly how that's going to work. Being from Ontario, the dairy governance in Ontario, which is the abbreviation's OMAFRA, is literally like it functions like a cartel. Like it's scary.
Yeah.
Like they kind of only protect like big dairy. So I'm very curious. And then like my Quebec friends, mes amis, with their language laws on their packaging as well. Being in Ottawa for so long and having my distribution company, that's kind of how other folks got kind of caught per se, was for the language barriers as well. So I'm really curious to see how this is going to become universal across the country. I'm excited, but I'm very curious as well.
Well, I think the one good thing with everything that happened, it's brought Canada closer.
Yes, I agree. This is the best. Everybody's been getting along in like 5 years. I'm here for it.
Yeah. So if this brings us all together,
Yeah.
and we fight together, I think we'll do well together.
Oh yeah.
How about that?
So this is going to be an exciting year for a lot of local farmers have already been contacting all of us.
Okay.
And I call local
Yeah.
British Columbia, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
And they're, we've we've always had great relationships all around the world through our partners.
Mhm.
You know, I was very fortunate. My dad had, you know, started those partnerships 50, 60 years ago, and they're still there.
Love it.
But we're all there sourcing, right? That's what we're trying to do.
Yeah. Sustainable food systems, right? It's the name of the
Yeah.
game.
Well, it's this the system. How can I say it? It wasn't broken,
No.
but it was to make sure that we're all fed.
Yeah.
And so there's certain areas that we go to every year,
Mm.
and then that area we're pulling cauliflower out. It could be in Mexico, it could be in California, it could be in British Columbia.
Yeah.
So that's going to all change. That'll take about a year,
Oh yeah. Yeah.
but I
It'll
don't
be
know.
an adjustment.
Yeah, it's going to be an adjustment. We're going to all work through it.
Oh yeah.
Meanwhile, we have all the other countries in the world that
Yep.
we've reached out to, so we'll make it.
Oh yeah. I spent the weekend in a farming community just this past socially. So Stoke the
Yeah,
Fire, Sarah and Stu are
yeah,
extremely good friends of mine. I
yeah.
actually delivered their stuff for them last night because I said, you need me to do a drop? But I spent the weekend on their new farm in Costin, over
Yes.
in the Okanagan there, and like it's a huge farming community, and there was a little market, and like it's on everybody's mind. It's all everybody's talking about. All the farmers out there, even if they do grow one product, they're all growing their own market gardens to sustain their own families and stuff this year. You see people really exploring and doing different things in greenhouses, and it's pretty cool.
You know, I don't know if you remember or were you around when they had that was in just outside of Cranbrook. It was all about farming and what was that
Is it the
called?
Basin Food and Buyers?
Yes, yes.
Yep, it
Were you
happens
there?
every year. I speak at it every year. And so Michael, you were on a panel this year too at Basin Food.
Right.
What I found interesting is that they all uh, back. It's got to be 10 or 12 years
Mm.
when but everything there, all the government, everyone, and I said to one lady or one government official, you know, you're really pushing for everyone to grow in the area. You expecting something catastrophic?
Yeah.
Well, then we got COVID, and then we got this.
Yeah.
So it's good. It's good.
Yeah.
You know.
I don't know about you. I just keep apologizing to the small business owners who I work with and saying, no, I'm really sorry this is happening now too. You know,
Yeah.
you guys just got through COVID, you did so good, and now this is happening too. And you've really, you know,
I think it's going to do. I think it's going to be better for everyone in the
I
long
think it
run.
is too. Yeah. Yeah. Oh, I see some familiar names. Yay. Sorry, I just creeped the guest list here. There's some goodies on there. Yay.
Oh,
Hey,
Mr.
Wayne, how
Kelly.
are you?
Howdy.
You getting early admittance here? You VIP? They lift the velvet rope and let you in.
Am I supposed to wait 2 minutes? 1 minute?
I'm teasing you. It's good to see you.
Thank you.
And are you relaxing tonight, Mr. Kelly?
I just scarfed back dinner at a record pace.
I haven't had mine yet, so we'll wait and see how
Oh, I
we
could
do.
have waited for you. You could have come up
You know what? Or you could have came down. We both know where each other's live.
then. Exactly. Looking forward to this. This will be good.
Yeah.